a closer look throughout the discussion today. So this is super general, but basically with the prodigal son, we see that he starts off having bad characteristics. He has a positive inner struggle, he has a change in attitude, he's growing, and he ends off on a good foot. And then the brother, he actually has good characteristics to start off with. He kind of has some, like an inflammatory reaction throughout, we'll see, and then he ends up being kind of the bad guy at the end of the parable. So I wanted to start off by reading a little bit from scripture regarding the prodigal son. So the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in the land, and he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him into his fields to feed swine. And he would have gladly filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' And he arose and came to his father." So this is all that relates to the prodigal son's transformative journey. So this is just for color coding purposes. We have the starting point, the inner struggle, and then the ending point here. So where does the prodigal son start off? So we read, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with prodigal living. He starts off as the sinner. He's mistaken. He's misled by his wants and desires and lusts and all that. So we see an image of a servant that's made a mistake, that's mistaken. And then when we read, when he came to himself, he said, "How many of my father's hired servants have enough bread and to spare, and I perish with hunger?" He's basically having an inner reflection that's intentional. He looks at his outward state, and he says, "I'm not in a good spot right now," so he's acknowledging his mistakes. And then when he says, "I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you,'" we see that he is not afraid to approach his father. He is trusting in his father's mercy, that if he were to go back, his father would accept him. So we see here the image of a servant that recognizes their mistake. He is intentional with how he directs his mindset, and he's humble enough to admit that he's wrong. And then at the end of it all, he self-rectifies, and we'll see what the ending action is for him. He arose and came to his father. So we see a servant that's repentant, he's restored, and honestly, that's all that we can aspire to be as servants. We're all going to be making mistakes, but are we humble enough to admit when we're wrong? Are we intentional enough to reflect when we're wrong and reflect upon our mistakes? And are we trustful in the mercy of God and in the mercy of the servants that we serve with, that they're going to help us rectify ourselves and correct our mistakes? So as a summary for the prodigal son, we see that I filled in the initial table with some of the qualities we just talked about. So we see that the prodigal son begins with the characteristics of being mistaken and misled. His inner struggle is a positive one that's intentional. He approaches it with humility, and he's trustful that God will, or his father will accept him, and then his ending point is that he is restored. And then I wanted it to be kind of interactive, but I couldn't help but make it a little bit cheesy. So I have a little bit of a case study here. So I know it doesn't apply to all of us because not all of us are Sunday school servants. But just bear with me for a moment. So for example, you've had an extremely busy week and weekend. You show up to Sunday school on Sunday before the students even get there. And then your co-servants ask if you can project the lesson onto the TV screen. Your heart sinks, you forgot you were responsible for that week's lesson. So what do? Hopefully the answer is easy enough. But A, do you tell your co-servants that you forgot your flash drive at home? Nobody uses flash drive, so that's a complete lie. Do you tell your co-servants that you've already given too many lessons this year and it's unfair to schedule you? Do you pretend that you can't hear your co-servants, and you kind of try to buy yourself some time for an excuse? Do you just shrug your shoulders and leave? Or are you just honest and upfront? You tell your co-servants about your situation, and you kind of ask for their help to kind of come up with like an emergency lesson on the spot. So what do you guys think? E? What, A? A could be valid. Okay, can we all agree that it's E? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I feel like the other ones are valid. Like, no one would judge you for that. But, so basically the prodigal son, we see through his story, we can see how we can deal with our mistakes. Nobody's perfect, and we're always going to be making mistakes, however little or small however little or big they are. So, do we brush our mistakes under the rug? Are we confrontational and inflammatory with others when confronted about our mistakes? And are we honest to God, ourselves, and others? So basically, if we can embrace humility, honesty, and intentionality, that would be a positive struggle. And then that transforms us from a bad starting point to a good starting point. And we're going to get more later, because it's hard to say, all we have to do is just be humble and honest. Like, that's hard to achieve those qualities. So we'll get more into that later. And then let's move on to the brother in Scripture. So we read, now his older son was in the field, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked what these things meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf. But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, lo, these many years I have been serving you. I never transgressed your commandment at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat, that I might make merry with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots, you killed the fatted calf for him. So just for the sake of organization, this is a little bit of a visual. So we have here the starting point, the inner struggle of the older brother, and his ending point. So when we read, now his older son was in the field, that's the older brother's kind of first image that we get of him. He's in the field, meaning he's just probably working while everyone else is in the house having the party. He's hardworking, and we see him as diligent. So he would be the servant that's hardworking and diligent. They have that kind of image. And then when we see the brother's inner struggle in his response to the father. So he says to his father, lo, these many years I've been serving you. I have never transgressed your commandments at any time. So he's like very self-aware of his hard work. He self-recognizes that he's a good guy and he's a good son. And he gives himself his own validation. And yet, when we read, and yet you never gave me a young goat that I might make merry with my friends, he's basically just focusing on what he doesn't have at that moment. He's in denial of his current and past blessings. His current blessings is that he has a merciful father. His current blessings is that his brother came back after he was lost. He's just so self-focused on what he himself doesn't have. And then when we read, but as soon as this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood with harlots, you filled the fatted calf for him. We see the brother's trying to distance himself in terms of his relationship with his brother. When he says, this son of yours, he never says, when my brother came. So we see that he's almost trying to like put a distance between him and his brother, trying not to associate with somebody that has the image of being a sinner. And then he's also that makes him very disrespectful towards his brother. But he's also very judgmental, because he said he specifies exactly the sin of his brother, that he devoured your livelihood with harlots. In the passage with the prodigal son, it doesn't really specify what exactly the prodigal son did. He just said he wasted his possessions with prodigal living. I'm just surprised that the older brother kind of verbalized his exact sin. So it's almost like when we read in the Gospels, like like you're looking at the speck in your brother's eye without looking at the plank in your own eye. So that's kind of the image, or that's kind of the bad reputation I get from the brother. So we see that the brother has a very, like I said, very inflammatory, very angry inner struggle. He doesn't have a very positive one. It's not transformative, rather it's destructive. And then the ending point for the brother is that he was angry and would not go in. So we have the image of a servant that's angry and that's stubborn. And this is just a summary of both brothers at this point. So we see that, and just in summary, the brother's starting characteristics are that he's hardworking and diligent. He's actually on the outside a very great servant. He has a destructive inner struggle characterized by self-righteousness, ungratefulness, resentfulness, and judgment. And then he ends up being, we get the image of him being an angry and stubborn person. And then let's do the case study for the brother. You're scheduled for this week's lesson, and you're scheduled for this week's lesson in Sunday school. You spent 4 hours working on an elaborate lesson, including like videos, examples from the writings of the church fathers, verses from scripture. You love this topic a lot and it is of great interest to you. When you go to Sunday school, the students are rowdy, nobody's listening, the other servants are yawning, and one student even yells, "This is so boring." Actually, we get that a lot in Sunday school. You are just frustrated with everyone at this point. So how do you react? You can A, yell at everyone out of your frustration. You can B, just cry on the spot. C, shrug your shoulders and leave the classroom. D, tell your co-servants you never want to give another lesson again. Or E, after class, you ask your co-servants for any tips that they might have to keep the students engaged. What do you guys think is the right answer? It should be pretty easy. E and E, yeah. Try to keep it nice and simple for this morning. Very good. So I know it's not a perfect example, but just trying to put relating to the brother and put it in context. So with the brother, we see kind of this theme of how do we deal with setbacks, because not everything goes our way, and it never will. So do we allow setbacks to dictate our emotions? Do we just do nothing and we never learn from setbacks? Do we let them determine our self-worth as servants? Do we recognize our setbacks, and are we willing to learn from them for the future? So essentially, if we let situations affect how we react, just like the brother did, that would be a negative struggle. But if we put some type of barrier, an emotional and mental barrier between the setbacks and our emotions and our self-worth, that would be an example of a positive struggle. So I know that was a lot. But basically, as a summary, if we look at the parable of the prodigal son through the lens of service, we see that there are two servants: the prodigal son, who has a positive, transformative inner struggle, and the brother, who has a negative and destructive inner struggle. So what does this all mean for us? So just like both brothers or both servants, we need to have our own starting point. We need to first recognize what we struggle with. We got to verbalize and put into words exactly what we struggle with. So some things are feeling inadequate, having pride or ego because of our experience, many years in service, all that stuff. Are we just exhausted or burnt out, and so forth. I don't want to read off the slide, but we'll get more into those later. And basically, our inner struggle involves our inner struggle needs to be focused on being positive, and that's not always possible. So some of the steps that we can take are more action-focused, more external steps, like our regular confession, talking with other servants, learning from them. But we need to have a mental shift. Just like Mark talked yesterday in the talk, sometimes we are a self-obstacle that's self-afflicted. And sometimes our struggle is because our mindset isn't in the right place. So the easiest thing we can do in terms of our inner struggle is to shift our mindset. Yes, it's hard to, see some tangible results sometimes, but if we have an internal mindset shift, that can make things easier. So we need to recognize that we're always going to be making mistakes, that we're always going to have setbacks. The only thing that we can really improve is how we react to these mistakes and setbacks, and that involves changing our inner language to be positive. And then the Bible gives us this language to positively approach our struggles. So just to delve a little bit deeper into some inner struggles, for example, like we'll talk about feeling inadequate compared to other servants. We might be telling ourselves, okay, I literally don't know anything compared to other servants. I'm just going to read the first verse on each slide just because it's a lot. But maybe we can share this for the workshop because we're going to need these verses and this idea. In terms of feeling inadequate, the Bible says in 2 Corinthians 3:5, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think of anything as being from ourselves, but our sufficiency is from God. So when we turn to the Bible, that changes our inner language. That's one of the most important things we can do at this point, is to shift our mindset, and looking at the Bible helps us with that. And then if we have pride or ego tied to experience, competence, or self-recognition, we can maybe find ourselves saying, I'm the one who makes all the decisions here, or I can't believe they took that decision without consulting with me first. In Proverbs 16:18, we read, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. For the inner struggle of being exhausted or burnt out, maybe we can find ourselves saying, I'm just too tired to serve anymore, or I don't want to serve anymore, people just tire me out, all this stuff. In Psalms 55:22, we read, cast your burden on the Lord and he will sustain you. In terms of feeling unworthy or hypocritical due to ongoing sin, or are we not being trustful of God's mercy, maybe we can find ourselves saying, I'm probably not the best person to be giving a lesson on this topic. I'm not going to lie to you. I definitely felt this when I was preparing this lesson, and that's something that I know that I need to work on. But we read in Psalm 103:10-12, he has not dealt with us according to our sins, nor punished us according to our iniquities. For as the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his mercy towards those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far has he removed our transgressions from us. And then, do we ever feel angry, frustrated, or resentful? Yes, so that's obviously a common struggle in service, especially in Sunday school with kids not behaving and things like that. Proverbs 15:1 says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Okay, I promise we're almost done. Are we too stubborn to see other viewpoints and perspectives? Maybe we can find ourselves, if we're stubborn, saying my way or the highway, or something along those lines. Proverbs 12:15 says, the way of a foolish is right in his own eyes, but he who heeds counsel is wise. And then finally, do we ever have idealistic expectations not meeting reality? If we find ourselves being pessimistic and saying it's literally never going to work out, Romans 8:28 reminds us, and we know that all things work together for good to those who love God, to those who are called according to his purpose. So basically, those were all examples of some inner struggles that are common in the service. What are the example mental language that we have? And what does the Bible say? And what is the language of the Bible that positively affects our thinking? That was the point of those last couple of slides. And then in terms of our ending point, so we begin with the starting point of recognizing our struggles. Our inner struggle is shifting our mindset from being a negative one to a positive one through turning to the words of the Bible and Scripture. And the ending point for us, we don't have one, because service equals struggle. We're always going to have a struggle in service. If it's easy, that means it's not done right. Basically, our struggle will never end. However, the more that we orient our mindset to be positive, and the more that we have a positive struggle, that helps us grow into the servants we aspire to be, just like the prodigal son. Are we always going to have a positive struggle? Like, no, that's not realistic. But that should be our goal. And then the good thing is that there will be noticeable outward changes correlating to the type of struggle we have. For example, if we start off as servants with a lack of confidence. If we work on ourselves, ultimately, we're going to grow into being more confident and motivating servants. For example, if we're prideful, we'll become more humble servants. If we struggle with anger and frustration, we'll be more calm and patient, and stubborn will be more of a collaborative servant. And then the contrary is true below. And then the too long didn't read or listen version of final summary. So basically today we talked about the parable of the prodigal son and how it portrays the inner struggles of two servants. One servant, who's the prodigal son, he struggled with a mistake and reacted positively by repenting and having an intentional inner reflection. The other servant, who was the brother, he was already naturally like a good servant. He was hardworking, but he struggled with a setback, and as a result, he reacted negatively. So we see from the parable of the prodigal son that our inner struggle can be positive or negative, and then our positive inner struggle involves some action, external factors like confession, obviously, learning from other servants, but a positive inner struggle features a mindset shift. And that mindset shift involves having positive inner language. And we get that positive inner language from the Bible. And that helps us confront mistakes and setbacks and helps us move forward mentally and helps us develop into the servants we aspire to be. So I want to share one final verse with you all. In Hebrews 4:15-16, for we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in times of need. So basically, God knows what we're struggling with, and he's going to give us the grace to move forward in service in times of our mistakes and our setbacks. And if the prodigal son were living today, he would be like, yeah, I did that, whatever this verse was talking about. So honestly, he's everything that we should aspire to be. And it was a great experience looking at the parable of the prodigal son through the lens of service, because a lot of times we hear it being talked about in terms of repentance and the Father's mercy and things like that, but it's super applicable to all of us. That's why I think this was the perfect weekend to do the Servants Retreat. So, and then I was just wondering, is like Lent for us as servants? I think so, because Lent is a whole blueprint for our service. So each week we read something. We read one of the passages in the Bible, and there's a theme. So I kind of just picked some of the themes here. I know, and I just wanted to put the prodigal son and the inner struggle kind of into perspective here. So, for example, in week 1 we have treasures in heaven versus earthly focus. Is our service done for our salvation instead of upholding a social image, for example? And then each of these weeks can just be a lecture on its own. I just wanted to kind of put everything into context. Week 2, with temptation on the mount, we have Christ's humility. Even though he's tempted with pride and all that, we see that, maybe that applies to us because we are all blessed with gifts, just like we learned last night, or we heard being talked about last night. Our own gifts are not for our own, puffing up, I'm, so good at this, all that stuff, but it's for building up the church and help it grow. And then for week 3, we just talked about the prodigal son with repentance and growth, how we need to have a positive inner struggle to be able to grow in service as individuals. With week 4, the Samaritan woman, one of the themes is inviting the forgotten. So how do we reach out to those who are not usually included in activities, people that, aren't in a specific friend group, don't regularly attend? Are we following up with these people or these students or kids or whatever it may be? And then week 5, we have the paralyzed man, recognizing the needs of others. Are we recognizing what others need before they even ask us for help? Are we in tune with other people's needs and struggles? For week 6, for the man born blind, we have kindness. Christ displays a lot of kindness. After the blind man was kind of kicked out of the synagogue and his parents left him and everyone was not nice to him, afterwards Christ followed up. He followed up with the blind man and He has shown him so much kindness. So how kind are we to others in service? Are we being positive? Are we giving other people hope? And then for week 7, we have Palm Sunday, which is glorifying God. The main question that we need to ask ourselves is our service leading others to Christ or away from Christ? And then finally, for week 8, we have the Pascha, crucifixion, and resurrection. All this is Christ's love, portrays Christ's love for us. So Christ, he sacrificed himself for us. Are we sacrificing our time, resources, and energy for others because we love them or because we want something in return? And so I just wanted to put everything into context. I know there's so many themes throughout Lent, but other than that, Lent is like made for us as servants, and it's important for us to be really on top of our mindset, especially going forward as servants and being able to grow. And that's it. Name of the lesson. So that's it.
I saw some hands were raised, so before we sort of jump in, maybe a few questions.
Thank you, Mariam. It was good. Thank you. Actually, it's not a question. It's a thought, because I feel bad for the brother, because we always look at him in a negative way. But honestly, I think he's just human. It makes sense that he's angry. To me, it makes sense. Yeah. Maybe I am not with him asking for something materialistic from his father, like the goat and stuff. But the father, the prodigal son, actually did something wrong. And he came back and he repented, which is, I don't want to say it's expected from us, but he did the right thing. But I would like to look at it more as a human experience. I think we all go, as you said, through the 2 phases. So sometimes our struggle is positive, sometimes it's negative. It doesn't make us good or bad. I think it's normal, it's human. Mm-hmm. So I just don't want the brother to be looked at.
No, I definitely relate to the brother, lens. 100%.
Yeah.
The problem with the brother, it's not about being angry as being jealous about his heart. It's fine to be angry or to be upset and talk to your father. But his problem was, his heart wasn't with his father. It seemed like he's there for the inheritance or to take it, I don't know.
Yeah, she has a good point, actually. So yeah, jealousy is different. Yeah. But I guess we all need some kind of, I don't want to say need some type of appreciation, but it feels good. Let's not deny it. But I think we all struggle, negatively and positively. And it's not the end, as you said. So I would say the 2 brothers are kind of one human in that case. Yeah. They go through the 2 phases,
Yeah, and I agree with you. I wish we got a follow-up on the, how are they doing now, type of situation. Did more drama happen?
Both eating the fatted calf.
Yeah.
And by the way, the older brother had a goat and was eating goat, but he didn't recognize that. He was living in his father's house, and he speaking his language. What was he eating? And he could have eaten from the fatted calf too. I don't think the younger brother would eat the whole calf, right? So he did. I'm trying to put a little humor.
But I do think it's important, because I think that one thing that at least I always look at is that why did the older brother look to his brother? Why didn't he look to his dad? In other words, this comparison, this sort of, I have and you don't have, you have and I don't have, is a. We were discussing it yesterday on this table, and the question is, was Christ unfair in the parable and said he gave 2 talents to another and he gave 5 to a third? What if the person who has 2 talents, he said, you know what? I really want to get 5. So I'm going to work super hard because I want the 5. Why am I not satisfied with the 2? Is a question. The parable didn't say he gave 1 to one to another, one to a third servant. He said, 1 gave 5, 1 gave 2, and 1 gave 1. And he's not an unjust, father, right? I think the challenge is that through our own human faults is that we're constantly comparing ourselves with each other, as opposed to looking upward, looking sideways as opposed to looking upward, right? And I think that, yes, he is human, but why didn't he look to his father? Why did he have to compare to himself with his brother?
I think because the father.
He looked at his father and he was angry that his father was okay with his brother when he came back here.
But was he angry? But in his words, he said, I've been with you all this time, and you didn't even offer me a 5-pounder, right? You killed the 500-pounder, and I'm here with you, right? So the words are directed to, he's going back to his father, but he never looked that his father is providing for him. He was living in his father's house, was he not? He was eating on his father's table, was he not? But because he thought that I am doing A, B, C, D, I am working hard for you, I am doing A, B, C, D. He didn't say, Dad, you're offering me 1, 2, and 3. He said, no, I am doing these things. I am a good boy, and your bad boy is coming in to take my meal. And the father said he said, all of what is mine is yours. In other words, are you following what I'm trying to get to? Oh. Yeah.
Thank you, Mariam. So you brought up a very good point when the older brother is naming the sins of the younger brother. He's actually projecting his own struggles on the younger brother. And he mentions that he wasted his living with harlots. And this was the same accusation that our Lord Jesus Christ was accused by. A projection of the Jewish community, had a lot of superstition, a lot of struggles with purity, sexuality, relationship, and projecting their shortfalls on Christ, or the older son projecting his struggles on the younger son. We can apply this to many aspects, anger, lust, vanity, or whatever. So I had a question. Because of this projecting that he wasted his life with harlots, why do you think the traditional churches are very sensitive when it comes, for example, for LGBTQ position, when it comes for mixed marriages, when it comes for marriage outside of the church? I'm not talking here from a theological or canonical perspective. I'm talking more from a cultural perspective or from a service lens. And the question is possibly for the workshop. Why are we very sensitive? Are we projecting our as a community, our struggle on others or on those who are a little bit different than us? And actually, one time we had a discussion, one of the servants, and he said, Abuna gave communion to somebody. It was a different church. And you don't know who's somebody? He did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How come Abuna is giving him community? And the answer was, we don't judge the priest. The priest has authority to give or not to give. The priest responds only to his bishop in this particular matter. So the response of the servant so how can we tell our kids to live a life of chastity while those who are not living a life of purity are being rewarded by the communion? This argument of this servant is totally unorthodox, because communion is not a reward. It's a medicine. But the question, are we projecting? Whenever we discuss anything in service, are we projecting our own shortfalls, our own shortcomings as a community, and those who are trying to enter the service or trying to be good members of the church and so on and so forth. Like, I don't want to put Abuna Michael on the spot, but sometimes after like the liturgy, it says those people who are smoking cigarettes in the back of the church, and then Abuna Michael is talking to them and laughing with them and visiting them. بياخد السجاير منهم. So if I am projecting, I said, no, those people should not come to church at all. But this is projecting my own weakness on other apparent mistakes.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry if I'm long.
no, it's okay. No, all good. But I think it's sometimes easier to project because it's hard to face like the internal garbage inside of us, for lack of a better word, because we do what makes us feel good. We do what makes us feel like, oh, we're good people. So I feel like in a way, like projecting onto others is like could sometimes just be an easy it just feels good to do that sometimes, for lack of a better way. This kind of ties back to what Mark was talking about last night. Sometimes we're just blind to ourselves being the obstacle, and we blame others as being the obstacle. So it's easier to put the blame on someone external or to put our internal struggles on somebody else, because that means that helps us avoid like dealing with our own issues. Insofar as a whole community, I don't know. I think the important thing is that we focus on ourselves. Like, are we projecting onto other people? Because if we have everybody else projecting onto everybody else, that's like a big mess. So I don't know. I'm not smart enough to answer that question.
I think you said it, Mariam, when you said self-awareness. I think the problem of the brother that Jesus wanted to highlight for all of us, because we're all that older brother who are watching someone return, or according to worldly standards, it doesn't fit, it doesn't make sense. And we all have that blind spot. All of us have that blind spot. Until Jesus really orient us, you don't need to align to any standards but mine.
Yeah.
That's the only standard. And the same thing happened with the woman that was caught in the act. And everybody had the stone in their hand. And every single person that was standing had that blind spot. And it was not till whoever among you without sin, cast her with the first stone. And I think that's speaks to our internal dialogue. So when you talk about resentment towards your brother and sister in service, for whatever lacking that they have, that's not yours. How about your stuff? How about your own thing?
Yeah.
How God is actually dealing with you or me on a daily basis. That's the part that I think, and when Ted says they were looking at the brother, not at the father, God only will judge us based on aligning us to his heart. Right? Because when he saw David, he saw that David was what? According to his heart. That's why David was great. Even though he knew, because he is timeless, that David will fall into murder and adultery, but David is actually going according to my heart, living like me. You know, it's nice. It's really beautiful. Yesterday in the prophecies, in Matins, when Saul entered the cave, and David was with his men in the back of the cave, and they told him, kill him. And he said, how can I touch the anointed of God? And he cut a piece of his robe, right? I want you to read that part again. And it says that David actually felt awful, felt really bad for even cutting. It's not like, if you cut the robe and not kill, I'm gonna brag, right? You see, I could have killed you, and he said that. But I want you to see the dialogue that David had with himself. That David, how can I cut the robe of the anointed? He still, even though he knows he's the king, even though that God rejected Saul, even though Saul is, tormented by evil, evil spirits. In his eyes, he's anointed by the Lord, right? He's the king, and he's still my father, the king. He called him. So it's that heart that God is after. Because according to our standards, Saul should have been killed in that cave, right? Not just cut his robe,
like demolished. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I think sometimes we miss. Sometimes we miss. I'm the first. What is my blind spot? What is my blind spot? Who?
I agree with Mariam. She well said it. I guess the problem when it's outside of us, we can do it. Our spirit works with our body to solve it. But the problem when we have the sickness in our spirit. So for example, I know what's my spiritual struggle. So I come to church trying to blind it in order to push myself to take the communion. But it's achy for me because I know what's my mistake. But as human being, we feel we want to relieve that pain in our spirit. So we are looking for other people, our other mistakes. We say, I'm not the worst one here. I'm okay to go for it. I guess this is what you said, answering why we sometimes condemn others about their mistakes.
Sorry, I'm just going to say one last thing. So I was thinking again, I think maybe that's not what the Bible says exactly, but just I think maybe it's the celebration of love that the father showed to the younger son. And sometimes I think we need more of God's love, and we need to empty ourselves in order to receive it. So that's what maybe we struggle most about, because I think the older brother might have seen, as I said, a celebration of love. So much love shown to his brother that maybe with the rhythm of everyday routine, he didn't feel it. But I think that he needed really to empty himself and receive more of God's love.
Can I say something about this, Vivian? Because I think we stop with certain emotions in the Bible and we get carried away. No, I know. I'm just going to clarify something. That incident of the older son with the father did not start when the father forgave the brother. That's the part. That envious heart, that righteous, self-righteous heart is growing without noticing. That's a huge blind spot. And that's the part that even regardless, this brother didn't even show up or come. This brother feels that way. He feels he's the righteous older son that do no bad. That's good all the time. And this father is not appreciating me. That's why he's talking about a goat. This goat didn't exist before the brother came. He's still thinking that he has a self-righteous. And that's a problem with all of us. When we get carried and we're not seeing it. It's actually a blind spot. You only notice it when you smash into the car next to you and say, I didn't see it. Yes, you didn't see it. It was right there the whole time on the highway, but you didn't see it. And that's the part that, again, self-awareness. And that happens in moments of silence, moments of prayer, moments of meditation, or when we listen to a talk or a sermon or read a verse and then it hits and say, I am that older brother. I've been living with this blind spot. I'm resentful of my brothers in the service. I keep looking at flaws. I'm not looking at myself. And that's what happens. I'm not after like I was in the, it's beyond that snapshot. It's beyond that picture. You know, the brother is on the ground and the father is carrying, and now he's coming, and all of a sudden, how dare you? No, he was living with how dare you all along without even the brother in the picture. And you see that with the laborer who were complaining to the Lord, the master of the vineyard. How dare you? You paid the ones that came at the 11th hour, and we've been working with you all day long. Right? And he told them, what did Jesus say? What is it to you? Who is giving? Are you giving from your own pocket? When the Father is forgiving, am I asking you to forgive your brother, or I'm forgiving your brother?
I think also, like Abuna said, and maybe to the point that Sharif was saying, I believe sometimes it's a human reaction, because when we see anything outside of us, the first thing that it's easy to our mind to do is judgment. Like, I need to comment. Like, if I saw something, do something bad or wrong, it's the easiest thing to do. I can make a judgment, this is right or wrong, without giving like some time to myself to think about what I'm doing instead of the other doing. And I believe this is one of the goal, what Jesus was doing to the Jewish community. Maybe it's like the Oriental communities. The Jewish communities was trying, or the leaders was trying to make it easy to judge on the sinful people. The woman that make a sin, it was easy judgment. They took it to Jesus and they were trying to judge her. But maybe Jesus was trying to give us, you don't need to judge the others, but you need to have a self-awareness more than judging outside or the surrounding around you. But it's also the bigger brother was doing the same thing. He was judging his father. He was trying to say, you doing something wrong. So he see a scene and he need to do a comment. The first thing that has come to his mind, I need to judge instead of doing what I'm doing. So easy thing to us always, every day, to judge, but the hardest part, which is the truth, or the one that we should do, that we need to get a pause, don't get our mind make like the fast action, which is most of the time is wrong, because it's a very fast and just happen by nature, don't without any thoughts.
Vis-a-vis no self-control.
I just want to add one thing, that what Abuna Mark said, it reminded me. St. John Chrysostom always says that the church is a hospital, right? And if we look at ourselves as each of us are a patient and everyone else is a patient with us, I mean, how can you ever look at another patient and look at them as anything other than they're also receiving a treatment? And we're all at different phases of our treatment. We all need different treatments, but we're all ill. If you look at it that way, it's hard to have resentment towards anyone, because we're all in the same boat.
On the same point as just Mark said, imagine yourself where you are at emergency room or urgent care. Look around you. Someone will be coughing. Someone is aching from different types of disease or something. So it's the same thing. We are not here at church because we are very well worthy as we needed to be here. So the same point as just Mark said. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. So I had just on the servants chat, I sent out a copy of the presentation that Mariam just went through, as well as the one slider workshop guide. Okay. But before we start, in order for this workshop to be effective, right, I think all of us need to take a 3 to 5 minute silence, settle yourself in, because you're going to be asking questions of yourself. So let's take 3 to 5 minutes, quiet time, just settle before you start the workshop. Please refrain from conversations with your colleague servants, okay? Just really 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes of just silence, please. So hopefully we had a chance to kind of settle ourselves in. Mariam is going to walk us through as to how we're going to sort of go through the workshop and sort of, guide you because there's a lot of good rich content in the slides that we shared. So use that as a reference. Go ahead, Mariam.
Okay, so I was thinking maybe for the workshop we do a similar exercise to what was outlined in the lecture. So basically, we got to examine how we feel and talk about service in order to reframe our thinking. So the structure we talked about in the lecture was like identifying our struggles, finding the words of the Bible that talk about the struggles, and then step 3 would be like reorienting our mindset. Our mindset. So for the workshop, just with like your groups at your tables, come up with like one to two phrases that you often kind of recognize yourself saying to yourself or to others in service. Either like, I'll just do it myself, no one is stepping up. Maybe you guys can look at the lecture that was posted in the WhatsApp, and you know how I gave those examples like, oh, my way or the highway or something like that. Just come up with one phrase and then try to think about like what this really means, like what belief underlies the phrase, what inner struggle does it point to, and then ultimately how does it shape our culture, and what are the long-term implications of having this type of like phrase always on the forefront of our minds. And then after that, try to find 1 to 2 verses from the Bible or from Scripture or from saying of the church fathers. Let's try to put that here. That kind of changes our outlook on the phrase. That's why I only like mentioned one verse during the lecture and didn't go through I put 3 to 4. So I didn't go through all of it, but you guys can use those if you'd like. And then the hard part is, could you think of some actionable steps that you can take to counteract this negative mindset or this phrase or whatever it might be? Does that make sense to everyone? Maybe I try to keep it simple because it's a loaded topic. So yeah. Okay, you guys can start. And then we'll reconvene after maybe 15 to 20 minutes.
Sorry for the distraction. Anyone did not receive the documents. That means you're not on the group chat. Anyone did not receive the 2 documents that I sent. Yes, sure. Okay, sure. Can you send me so I can have your information?
Did everyone come up with an example or discuss in groups and stuff? You guys need more time, or can we share? The share? Okay. 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 Who wants to begin with sharing kind of to the broader group what you guys were thinking? Anyone want to go first? No? No? Okay. You guys.
All right, so we came up with kind of two of that we usually say, and I think that Lisa's here and Anna's here, so I'm going to put myself on blast. But some of the things that we say is like sometimes, and I'll just do it myself, but when I say I'll do it myself, it comes out of a place of just because I don't want to burden anyone else, and I've procrastinated long enough to get this job done or to ask someone to teach, so I don't want to put my procrastination on someone else, so I will do it. It's not just like being 100% honest. It's not because I don't think anyone else can do it, but it's just because I've procrastinated long enough and I'll take care of it. Another thing that we kind of say is that we'll say, I'm too old, khalas, like I'm done, like I'm retired, like, and someone else, like I'm just done. I'm done with service, I'm tired and I don't want to do it anymore. Some of the things like in shaping the culture of service is that sometimes if one person takes care of everything, even if it's the best intentions, then it just becomes that not everyone's sharing in service and not everyone is feeling like they have a role in the class. And also shaping the culture of our service of I'm done, I'm retired, is that service, there's an endpoint to service, I think. Did we say that there's like that once you are 55 years old, then that's it, and like, or 65 or whatever, and then that's it, and then everybody learns that that's it. As soon as you're that age, then you're not a servant anymore. I think the Bible phrases, I think that you had them in and actually, sorry, one more thing that we kind of say, sorry, is that I went back, I want to go backwards, is that sometimes a common phrase that someone might say is that, like, I don't know enough in order to do this. They know more, and I can't do it. So I think that you also had some verses in there, all the verses in there really, about... 2 Corinthians 3-5, not that we are sufficient of ourselves to think of anything as being from ourselves, but our sufficiency is from God. We kind of thought of funnier ones for the other scenarios, like that you'll sleep when you're in heaven, you'll rest when you're in heaven, so you can't, you can't retire now. And I thought about the song Lean on Me. What we were saying is that if you feel like you don't want to burden anyone else in service, is that like you need to lean on other people because the other people need to feel like you need the help, and then the other people they like to help and they want to, that's a service in and of itself, is to serve your other servants, if that makes sense.
Thank you so much. Anyone else want to go? Okay.
So we basically picked the same phrase. I'll just do it by myself, but from a totally different perspective. Just a minute. I need to have the questions in front of me. What belief about service underlies this phrase? Maybe somebody who's thinking, I don't trust others, or I think it's not going to be done the perfect way. And the struggle is the perfectionist servant. How does it shape the culture of service? It kind of has a spirit of judgment to others, maybe some pride, and also it kind of alienates others. Yani it's not, it's against unity. And then we said the verses are 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10, as each one has received a gift, minister it to one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. So we have to believe that each one has a gift and can contribute. Also trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. يعني فيها we do trust God to work through each one, and it's God's work. Actionable steps, we have to pray, and if a servant feels like they need to do everything perfect, so no, they need to intentionally think that I'm gonna ask for help, or I'm gonna step back. And also, some servants said there's a problem, that there's some servants who are shy. They don't share ideas, or they are afraid of sharing ideas. So if I see that there's a person with me who's shy, I'm gonna make an effort to get closer to that person, maybe more friendly, and help them open up and share.
That's perfect. Thank you. This is the script. No?
You guys gonna help me out, right? Okay. So we didn't actually pick one from the list here. We came up with a phrase, at least like when it comes to myself, that I often say to others during the service is that people like to talk about doing something for the service, but don't ever actually want to do anything about it when it comes to the service. And the inner struggle that it points to, at least what we were talking about, is being okay with the idea that not everybody can or is able to care about or complete something when it comes to the service in a way that maybe I can or care about at the level that I do, and that's okay. And if anything, being upset or frustrated with the idea that people are talking about doing something for the service and those ideas could be wonderful, maybe they don't know how to do it. Maybe they don't know where to start. Maybe they're not exactly sure. And being okay and understanding about that, so that it doesn't become, out of frustration or out of anger or being, well, why doesn't anybody want to do anything? And that idea shapes the culture of the service to be something like very productivity focused and based, which is not the point of service, like when it comes to that extreme. And understanding that, like, he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion to the day of Christ Jesus, and that there is a lot of like room for God to work and in that aspect of the service. And it's not just like, all right, we set up an action item and plan, and it needs to be very rigid and structural to the point like we're losing sight of it. And I'll say that for myself, like I do that a lot. So being understanding about that point, that that's a common phrase that we say, or I say.
You guys can go. Anyone? Sandra? Anna? Anyone? No. Okay, I don't know. You guys can pass it around.
You can do it.
You can do it.
I don't know the phrase. Our phrase was whatever you guys want, or whatever you want in general. Yeah.
That's with a lot of feelings. You're usually like, you're usually like, do what you want, but do it my way.
I want the question or the verse.
All right, go ahead, Sandra.
So our verse was, I'm good with zeal for your house has eaten me up, in Sirach.
Yeah, just continuing on what Sandra said. So as much as do what you want can implies, a peaceful attitude on the group, but then it can has a negative implication that
I have something, but I don't want to share it. It could be rejected, or the idea I would be afraid to voice out my own ideas. And I think connecting it to last topic, coming from different cultures, everybody would be like, I used to do this back in whatever type of servant or out of state, but then if I propose this idea here, it would be funny. It would be out of context, or causes conflict. Yeah. Another statement that we've used is, I like what you guys are saying, but it has been proven failure, when we tried it before. Or we can take a detour about it and add a different angle to your suggestion. What about things like activities during Lent? You will have like 10 servants on the group. Oh, let's do memorizing a psalm. Let's do an outing. Let's do Bible activity every day. And then coming up to a unified conclusion that satisfies everybody is hard. We kind of agree on some actionable steps using the verse that Sandra said from Sirach. What is it? Okay, and establish a heart of good counsel within yourself, for there's nothing of greater usefulness to you than this. We also use the analogy in Corinthians 1, the members of the one body speaking to each other, and how the heart can see the eye, how the eye can see the ear, and everybody seeing the other member in the one body useful, and then bringing this to the head, to Christ in the church. I think that's it.
How about this group?
Okay, so the common phrase, the common phrase we came up with is, "These children are terrible." I just have to be frank, okay?
That's the older brother.
Yeah, right? And we frequently will focus on maybe the difficulties we face as servants dealing with some of the children. And what this phrase really shows is our own weaknesses. That's really all it shows, right? Because these children are all made in the image of God, and they are struggling with whatever it is they're struggling with, as they should be expected to for their age. And yes, some more than others. But when we have difficulties with the children, it's because we are either impatient, or we are resentful, or we have pride in the quote-unquote work we put into, say, the lesson or whatever it is, the service that we're doing, and we feel that we are owed a certain level of respect. I'm the servant, you're the child, and that's a relationship, and there's certain facets of the relationship that need to be maintained. And I think like I said, it's more of a wake-up call for us as servants, that we need to be more humble, we need to be more patient, and we need to recognize these children not as something that I am responsible to mold, but rather these are children who are born in the image of God, and God loves them the way I love them, or I should love them. And my job is just to guide them through their path and their relationship with Christ. There's many verses. I quickly looked up a couple, but from Ephesians 4:2, with all loneliness and gentleness, with long suffering, bearing with one another in love. And one thing separate from that Dina brought up and a few others brought up, and I've realized that in the service, what I wish we had more of is, I think, communication between the service, because there's a lot of, when we say, well, I'm going to do this because so-and-so can't do it, or I'm going to do this because so-and-so can't or isn't able to, right? They don't have the capability, or the service depends on me. It's because, to some extent, there's a lack of communication. We all have certain gifts. We all want to serve. And some of that, it goes back to what the servants' meetings have been on over the past few weeks, of there's cultural differences, right? Especially in different generations. How we serve, people who served previously in Egypt versus those who have served all their life here. There are ways to serve that work great in Egypt, may not necessarily work great here, and vice versa, but that doesn't mean we must be dismissive. When people have ideas of doing certain things, they have those ideas because they're coming from a background that's informed by different things than my background. That's all.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone have any last thoughts or comments or anything? No? Okay.
So I just want to go back to the prodigal son and his reaction, because we've been all thinking about what could be the cause for that. And I'm thinking, as a parent, a teacher, and a servant, I feel like I see the reaction a lot, and most of the times it's not coming out of I deserve better or I should be rewarded, but actually comes out of I feel like I don't feel that I'm being loved, or I feel like I'm not being seen, and I'm trying my best to get that sense, and I'm not getting it. At the same time, that child or that brother, they're looking at the parent or the leader, and they feel like they're giving all attention and time and effort to the other child or the other brother who's showing challenging behavior. So sometimes we just give our attention, negative attention to kids or sons or daughters without realizing that we're not thinking the same way about the other ones. I don't know if you're able to get my point. We give negative attention, at the same time we're not giving any attention to the other one. We do it unintentionally, we don't really mean that. We love all of them, but we don't show it this way. And you feel like there are some kids who try to earn our love, and by doing their best to be seen, but we're not able to see them because we're so busy giving all our attention and time and everything to the kids who are not doing the right thing, because we want to support them. But everyone needs to feel loved. Everyone needs to feel seen, even if they're really doing well. So when we have a class and we have a couple of kids who are showing challenging behavior, I feel like we should not just give our attention to them, but we also have to give attention to the other ones. That's actually what they deserve. And usually when we don't give them attention, they will try to seek negative attention, which I feel like that's what the older son did when he showed his anger. He's okay, I've been trying to hold it together, I've been trying to do my best, but I'm not being seen yet. I'm not feeling loved yet. So I'm gonna act out. Maybe that will give me some attention. So I feel like it doesn't always mean that child feels like I'm better and I should be getting should be rewarded. No, but actually it's sense of how about me? I want to feel loved too. That's it. Yeah.
Thank you. No problem. I like that point a lot. A lot of times, because sometimes we react to students that act out, and then others don't feel seen, so they start to act out too. Yes. And it's where's that line that we draw where we have to give everybody the same attention? It's a struggle. It's yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Sorry, I thought you were gonna.
Just to support your point, there's a great book. I don't know if anyone's read it, but it's called "Transforming the Difficult Child" by Howard Glasser. But it honestly was one of the most transformational books I've ever read in my parenting books that I've embarked on, and it really helps us shift our focus to attention as the reward. We're going to reward those who are acting properly, and we're going to starve attention from those who are acting improperly, and it shifts everything. But we all know that concept, but in reading a book, it really helps kind of drive it home in a different way.
Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to comment a few things, sorry. Or just one real comment that I've been... I want to make sure that as we're having our discussions, each and every one of you are in a leadership position, okay? So you're all leaders, and you all have responsibility. And we each have different leadership roles and different responsibilities, but the expectation is, and I want to encourage you, that we come out of all of this saying, I have a responsibility and I need to step up to my responsibility. Whether I have the talent, I don't have the talent, some talents I'm weak at, some talents I'm stronger at, at the end of the day, we all have responsibility. And the more I'm able to acknowledge my responsibilities, acknowledge my talents, I'm able to serve in a way or in a capacity that allows people to benefit. So I was just kind of chit-chatting with Abuna Mark real quick. So I always think, in my mind, Abuna Mark and I work very well together. I also think Abuna Mark and I are very different in so many ways, okay? So we very much complement each other, but the idea is Abuna Mark and I have that awareness. And I'm Abuna Mark, Abuna Mina, Abuna Ngelo, so I'm just saying right now because Abuna Mark's in the room, okay? We have this awareness of each other. I know Abuna Mark's strengths through our experience with each other. We learned about each other's strengths and each other's weaknesses. But at the end of the day, my strengths, Abuna Mark has the expectation that I'm going to step up. Abuna Mark's strengths, I have the expectation that he's going to step up and take that ownership. So I also want to make sure that we each, as we're evaluating ourselves, as we're evaluating the language and the talents, that you have that responsibility, you have that ownership that I'm going to step up. I want us to walk out here at the end of this retreat. One of the goals would be, I'm a leader in this church. This is my church. I am a leader in this church, and I have a responsibility to take action. I have a responsibility to make a change, to improve something. Because I worry very much that sometimes people just sort of start to get very relaxed. Okay, you know what? So-and-so is very good at it. Let them just take care of it. Oh, so-and-so is very good. So you got a class of like 5, 6, 7 servants, and really only 2 servants are serving. Why? Because the other 5 come back and say, well, they seem like they're really good at what they're doing. Let's just be a good servant. Let's humble ourselves. Let's take a step back and let them kind of take that responsibility. And then you find one of the complaints you always hear is all the services fall on 1 or 2 servants in the class. So I want us to be a little bit more like inspired, and maybe our language to be a little bit more uplifting, that no, I have a responsibility. I might not speak Arabic very well, but I was asked to give Arabic Bible studies. I did it. I might not speak English very well, but I'm asked to give a lesson in English. I can do it. Be inspired. Okay, be a little bit more. Abuna Ngelo, I think, is to me, as much as I love Abuna Ngelo, the man came here, his English was horrible. Okay, it was. His English was horrible. And I joke around with him, like, Abuna, I think you have a PhD in English. Because he studied, the guy studied English. He studied, and he's doing his best. To me, that's an inspiration. Like, I can do that. Maybe not, English is not my problem, but maybe Arabic is a problem. Maybe the way I use computer skills, the way I use whatever talents that I acknowledge in my life that I'm weak in, I hope that we're inspired to start focusing on my weaknesses to improve them. God gave us all so many talents. It's not just, one talent. Oh, you have one talent and you have one talent. We all have so much talent. And I want us to be inspired a little bit more. I want us maybe the language to be a little bit more uplifting, because I'm kind of, and forgive me, I just feel the language is kind of like a little depressing, okay? A little depressing. Like, as we're talking, it's just, we have to be a little bit inspired. We're all leaders in this church. We're all leaders in this church, okay? And I hope that we can kind of read, like as we continue this retreat today, really think about, what can I do? What is the awareness level of myself, and how can God use me to make an impact on people's lives? Is that everyone okay with this? Because is that good, Abuna Mark? All right, thank you, Abuna Mark. All right, I hope we're all inspired, because I'm loving the discussion and the languages, and there's things that we have to be aware of, but we also have to realize that each and every one of us can handle and can do so much, okay? And the more we're inspired, the more we realize God can, we're not limited in our talents. We have so much that we can give. And each and every one of you, I think Siham already left, but her question yesterday, I started to really think about it. Each and every one of you are very successful in your careers. So why is it that we're successful in our careers, and then we come to church, and we're just like, let me just sit in the side. If I'm successful in my careers, take your talent that you have in your career and apply it to your church. Apply it to your lives. So I just want to inspire us to maybe be a little bit more, no, we are leaders. We should be inspired. We should know how God can work in our lives to encourage us to be uplifted so we can have a good service for the glory of God. Okay? Ted, do you want to add what you're saying? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with me.
The weather's actually not too bad outside, right? So we have a bit of a break, right? There's an opportunity to connect with servants you do not know. So don't sort of precipitate toward the servants that you hang out with all the time, but an opportunity to connect with servants whom you don't know or you feel like you don't know, okay? So we have a bit of a break now. We'll start back at 1:30, 1:15, I think. What does the schedule say? 1:15, okay? Lecture number 3 is 1:15. So we have a little bit over than half an hour. The weather is nice outside. We actually took the kids outside, if it's okay with the parents, right? They went out and they had some good time. Just go for a stroll if you want. Chat it up with your friends, have coffee, whatever, okay?